Hey everybody, Benjamin Keck with Keck Legal. Today I want to talk about life after bankruptcy. And I'm going to tell you something very personal that not a lot of people know about me. I'm reminded of an old commercial. I don't know how many people are old enough to remember that the hair club for men, with the guy who would say, I'm not only the hair club president, I'm also a client. Well, I am not only a attorney who practices bankruptcy law, I'm also a client. When I was a young entrepreneur, I had a landscaping business. Back in the late 90s, I'm dating myself here. 18-year-old kid with lots of dreams and ambition could very easily get several credit cards with $20,000 limits, and that's what I did. Went out, um, didn't even set up an LLC, which were kind of new at the time. Uh, didn't get a bank loan. I financed lots of equipment, went out, bought trucks, trailers, equipment, got 3 crews up and running, and was very busy, had a lot of customers, and things were growing. But I was young and learning, and in Wisconsin, landscaping is a very seasonal and very difficult business, and I learned a lot of things along the way, and survived for some time, but really reached a point where I wasn't making money, and my plan was I borrowed this money on credit cards basically to finance the business. And the plan was, okay, I'm going to pay those off in a few months. And then when I didn't hit my numbers, all it takes is a few hiccups. In my case, there was a drought and sudden, the recession just all kind of happened at once where business slowed down, and all of a sudden we were slow and weren't making the money we were supposed to be making and couldn't pay off those credit cards. Well, at 20% interest or more, it just snowballs. Nobody can really afford to be paying 20 some percent interest. It's unsustainable. And oh, by the way, if you get busy and you miss a payment, now they put you in default. Now you're paying 30 some percent interest, which is nobody can actually afford that. If you're paying 30% interest on credit cards, you're never digging out of that hole, most likely, unless you win the lottery or something. There's some great turnaround that happens. So, of course, for me, bankruptcy was never an option. That's not even something I ever considered. If you even had said the word bankruptcy to me, I would just went like this, wouldn't have listened to you. And kind of ironically now, being on the other side of it, I see a lot of clients like that where they're like, this is not even something I can think about or consider. It's like failure. There's not an option. It's not. I believed that I could will myself to success. That as long as I worked hard enough, I was smart enough, and I was ambitious enough, and I was going to figure this out and work it out. But what I realized is there's factors beyond your control. You just can't control everything. Things happen, and you could have the best plans in the world and be the hardest worker in the world and be super smart, and sometimes it's just bad luck and things just don't go according to plan. And when you find yourself in that situation where you've got debt snowballing and building up and growing, you're in a tough spot. And that's where I was. And I was in denial for a little while, which probably some people out there will recognize that. I see it a lot now, being on the other side of it and talking to people in those similar situations. And for me, I had a bit of a wake-up call, and I don't know, maybe this video will be a wake-up call for you. This was in the early 2000s when the internet was somewhat new. So I saw something, somebody popped up. It was something like top 10 reasons you might want to think about maybe talking to a bankruptcy lawyer. It's like, are you working 80 hours a week and not making any money? And are you worried about being able to pay your bills? And I'm going down the list thinking, me. Okay, I guess I ought to talk to somebody. And what I realized was, I'd had over $100,000 in credit card debt, and I was still relatively young, and thought to myself, well, how long is it going to take me to dig out of this hole? Well, with the meter running on 20-30% credit card bills, I might still be paying that off now 20 years later. And I thought to myself, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to spend the next 20 years making the banks and the credit card companies rich while I'm working my butt off for them. Why put myself through that? And I made the very difficult decision to, I sold my business, sold the assets, and made some money by doing that. So if you have a business, that you want to be thinking about what value there is there. And for me, actually, my customer list was the most valuable thing. It actually got more from that than the equipment. But I wound up filing personal Chapter 7 to wipe out the debt. So in 2005, I actually filed, went and talked to a bunch of bankruptcy lawyers and settled on one, and filed the Chapter 7 case and got the debts discharged. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because I was able to hit the reset button and move on with my life and get a fresh start. And that's really what it's all about. That's why the bankruptcy laws exist. You've probably heard, oh, we don't have debtors' prisons in this country, and you can, no matter how great the weight is, you can move on with your life. And that's what bankruptcy is. It's the great reset button. It's in the Constitution that Congress can make laws regarding bankruptcy, and so it's there for your protection, so that you're not forced, as much as the banks and the credit card companies would love you to believe that, oh no, God forbid, you can't ever file bankruptcy. And you have lots of people on, doing videos on TVs and podcasts who are like, oh, God forbid, you can never consider bankruptcy. And I don't know, I did it. And a lot of people ask me, oh God, what about my credit score? Oh, I can't possibly have my credit score go down. Well, if you do nothing, if you don't file bankruptcy, your credit scores, it couldn't possibly get any lower. Almost every client I come to me, they're so worried about their credit score, but it's like, you have nowhere to go but up. Like, if you don't file bankruptcy, your credit score is just going to keep getting worse if you're getting hit with lawsuits and judgments and collection actions. So, for a lot of people, and for me, it made sense to just rip the bandage off. Let's just wipe all this debt out, hit the reset button. Now I knew I couldn't get another discharge for 8 years. That was okay. Because I wasn't going to go back out and start running up credit card debt. I sold the business. I decided, okay, I'm going to live on a budget. I didn't have another credit card for several years. By the way, if I wanted one, I could have got one. A lot of people ask me, oh, am I going to be able to get credit cards? As soon as you get a Chapter 7 discharge, you're going to get credit card offers in the mail immediately. Now, it's going to be low limit, high interest cards, but for a lot of lenders, someone who just got a Chapter 7 discharge is actually a very attractive borrower, because one, you can't get another discharge for the next 8 years, so they know you're not going to just turn around and file bankruptcy, and you just wiped out all your debt, so you don't have any other debt. So will you be able to get credit cards after bankruptcy? Yes, absolutely. Should you? Probably not. You should probably be living on a budget and pay, if you do get a credit card for convenience sake, all right, have a really low limit on it, $1,000, $2,000, and pay that thing off every single month, so you don't wind up back in the same situation. And for me, people ask, oh, will I be able to get an apartment or a house or a car? And it varies, right? There's no rule. It's up to lenders to decide. And for me, I went out and got a car within a year. I had to shop around and check with different lenders. Some places it was like, oh no, it's a hard no based on having a bankruptcy on my record. And then, I did eventually find a lender. Now it was a much higher interest rate. I think I was paying like 15% interest, but I got a car. So, not impossible, but keep in mind, if you do need to go out and get a car, probably either want to do that before filing bankruptcy, if you can, or make sure you're not going out and spending $40,000 on a car. You're getting like a $10,000 car and paying it off if you're going to be paying, 15% interest on that car. I went out, and within a year I got an apartment from, one of these large corporate landlords that, they typically have pretty strict standards. So that didn't stop me. So for me, and everybody's situation is different, but for me, filing Chapter 7 was one of the best decisions I made. Wiped out all that credit card debt, eliminated the stress of worrying, okay, how am I going to deal with all of this? And within a year, I was getting credit card offers, which eventually, a few years later, I did start rebuilding my credit, right? Because that's what you have to do. You have to have some credit. And so that's what I started doing, getting a couple credit cards and making sure I paid them off every single month, which I still do to this day. I also had payroll taxes that I hadn't paid. That's, by the way, one of the worst things you could possibly do is not pay payroll taxes. And I was young and made that mistake, and I had 30 some $1,000s worth of payroll taxes. And these results might not be typical, but after filing Chapter 7, submitted an offer in compromise to the government, and they accepted it, and I paid 10% of what was owed. I said, hey, look, I filed bankruptcy, and here's what I can afford to pay, and they accepted it, and so I settled the tax debt. So for me, again, one of the best decisions I ever made, and I'm here to tell you, there's life after bankruptcy. It's not, people have this weird idea. A lot of people, I think, that like your life is like over. Oh my God, if I declare bankruptcy, whatever that means, if I declare bankruptcy, it's like I've failed, my life is over. It's actually the exact opposite. It's like you're starting over. You're beginning your life anew. You're resetting, you're refreshing, you're moving on to the next chapter. That's what filing bankruptcy allows you to do. It allows you to get out of that hole. And maybe y'all have heard the saying that if you find yourself in a hole, just getting deeper, the first thing you should do is stop digging. And a lot of people, they just keep digging, and you're just digging yourself a deeper hole. And so that's what filing bankruptcy allows you to do. It allows you to get out of the hole and move on with your life. And that's what I did, and things have turned out quite all right for me. I hope they turn out all right for you. If 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 any of this resonates with you, I certainly think you need to talk to a bankruptcy lawyer immediately. Do not wait. Waiting is the worst thing you can do. It's only going to get worse. And if you're in Georgia and there's anything we can do to help, please feel free to reach out. Benjamin Keck at Keck Legal. We're on the internet at www.kecklegal.com. That's kecklegal.com. Thanks, everybody.